Hi everyone. So there's two tools that I want to be showing you. Well, three actually this week. One of them, or two of them, are a review, the dodge and burn tools. I use these interchangeably because they don't do the same function, but they have the same idea where you're either darkening or lightening a certain spot of your photo. I also want to talk about the crop tool, which will help you to come up with a composition that can be off-centered, fall into rule of thirds if you'd like. Because with our perspective photography, we tend to have a central vanishing point unless you have a special tilt shift lens. So this crop tool is useful for us to make a little bit more of an interesting composition sometimes. So I've pulled up two photos just from the internet, one of a city, one of a forest. And I'm going to start off with the forest photo. So as you would have read in that Vanishing Point article about atmospheric perspective, you'll notice that our atmosphere starts to make our background a little bit hazy on us. So I'm going to go ahead and start by duplicating my layer. My first step always when I'm editing a photo in Photopea. And your dodge and burn tool, again, those are going to be right down here underneath this funky looking tool, or by hitting the O key. You can also search using this magnifying glass icon, the find icon up here. So I could type in dodge and it will automatically select my dodge tool. A couple of those shortcuts we talked about were increasing the brush size with your brackets near the P key. So I'm turning my brush up and I'm also turning the softness or the hardness down so that I don't get a harsh edge on this. And my settings here, my midtones and exposures, those are settings that I could play around with in order to come up with a certain intensity of how this brush would work for us. I'm just going to go a little bit at a time here. And we can see how I'm quickly adding a fair amount of light into my photo. I might say, okay, well, it's time that we try something else about halfway through. So I just tried to switch it to highlights. I can decide if I like that or not and compare it to shadows. I think shadows isn't making it look super realistic, but with highlights, it was a little bit more convincing. So I'm going through and I'm just highlighting certain spots where I want it to appear like there is that light coming through, and following our rules of atmospheric perspective, I'm just making it vanish more and more as it goes into that horizon line, into that vanishing point. Now, the other tool, burn, would do the opposite. It would make your details darker. Same process, I'm increasing the size of my brush and decreasing the hardness of the brush. And if I'm going bright, far away, I might say, okay, this is a good opportunity to darken up as I go closer. I might say, okay, it looks kind of realistic if I just darken every tree like this, and I won't go too crazy with it. And now suddenly I have that illusion of depth rendered a lot more in my work than I did previously. To check it, I can just click on my eye icon, and this was my original, which is still, I would say, a good photo. There's a nice amount of lighting and contrast in it, but now I've created this effect even more so that drags our eye right to that center point. To give you the visual of how that crop tool is going to work, you're going to look for this icon. It's like the square with the two little edges. You can also use the C key on your keyboard to select it, or you can use the search up here. And what I select is the area I want the picture to be. So if I'm thinking about rule of thirds, I'm going to go ahead and try to align this as best as I can to fall into a third of the image with my vanishing point. And it just looked like I had a little bit too much on the outside there. So I'll go back in. In Photoshop, it would have automatically selected to the border, but in Photopea, you just have to do a little bit of extra work there. And I'll hit check. And now suddenly I've altered my composition and I can decide if I think it's more appealing this way, cropped, or as the original. You're also always welcome to play under image adjustments, as we covered that first week unofficially when you saw those different editing styles, and maybe you were inspired to complete them, or some of them, one of them. For example, I could go to black and white and see if that contrast additionally helps my photo. And it almost makes it look a bit more real. I can also play around with that contrast in here. So it's pretty much up to you. A lot of these different edits that you make, and as long as they look something in the realm of real, it can be a little bit surreal, or a little bit extra, a little bit exaggerated. But the idea there is that you are trying out these tools if you haven't already. And again, my original photo and my edited photo using the dodge and burn tools to select certain spots and create them darker. I'm going to show you also on the cityscape. So I'm starting by duplicating my layer. Now in this one, I'm seeing that we have, again, this actually this background's overexposed as well as the sky was in the previous picture. In this, I'm going to go ahead and start by using my dodge tool again. I'll size up my brush, and I'm just giving that an additional bit of atmospheric perspective. I'm going to take my exposure down just a little bit because I'm noticing it was really making things get a little bit too bright. I'm also playing around with this on my mid-tone setting, and I'm realizing it's not doing much now. So I'm bringing it back, and okay, now mid-tone's at 40%. I'm realizing this is starting to work for us. I'll scale my brush up and see what else I can get going. So now that same process could go where you say, okay, well, I've made this atmospheric perspective to help out show my distance or my space. I have rendered not only through the use of my lines that go into a vanishing point, but I've also helped it out by exaggerating the value in my work. All right, so we've gotten that taken care of nicely. Now we go to our burn tool. I'm increasing the size so it goes really quick. The larger my brush is, the more that it has to think between each pass. So I'm just noticing it's taking a moment, and you will as well if you're on a school computer especially. But now I've increased the contrast to my own liking, because with the dodge and burn tool, you have full control over it as compared to the image adjustment features. And now again, once we finish with our usage of the dodge and burn tool, it may be your time to say, okay, let's go back and see what's in those image adjustments for this. So we'll take a look at that in just one moment. I'm darkening the ground as well to make it match that beautiful contrast in the buildings and to the sky at the end. All right. So I could try out image adjustments, and what I did before, of course, was the black and white one. But for example, um, if I wanted to maybe add a little bit of pixelation or color back to this sky, we could see if our hue and saturation tool would work. What that does, it'll typically rewrite any existing colors. You may even find that you like something a little bit on the odd side. We've got like this Hulk theme going on. And it's up to you to kind of just play around and say, okay, well, I think this might be a little bit too bright, so let me turn the brightness down. Okay, I'm not seeing a lot of contrast or shift between light and dark, so maybe I'll turn that contrast up. These are choices that you are going to make for what you feel would present your work the best. Please reach out if you have any questions or are getting stuck at any point in this. Remember, crop tool and dodge and burn to illustrate aerial or atmospheric perspective. They're both the same thing. And best of luck on this project's editing. It's going to be due on Thursday, so just make sure that you read through those requirements of the project. We're looking for 5 to 10 images, so if you have more than 5 that you've edited, please turn those in.